Hey everybody, this is Amanda from Dahl Health, and our wonderful cameraman tonight is Christopher. As many of you know us both already, we had an event a couple of weeks ago at South American Imports, which is an amazing crystal shop here in San Diego, and a lot of you were able to come and had fantastic questions about crystal grids. So Chris and I thought that it would be fun to share some information about crystal grids, just to give you some general ideas about how we do a grid. I think everybody probably has their own flair to it, but I wanted to share some information with you tonight. We also had some people submit some fantastic questions already, so I'm going to go ahead and answer some of those questions too. So just to start with some basics when you're making a grid, is you want to obviously start with crystals. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is cleaning your crystals, because it's important that when you pick crystals to work with for your grid, that you clear them energetically and just make sure that any energies that are in them from using them for meditation or in your healing practice has been cleared out before you start using them on your grid. So a couple of ways that Chris and I clean our grids. This is our favorite way and probably the way that we use the most. If you're new to crystals, this is how I would recommend cleansing your crystals. These are called selenite bars. Selenite is a self-cleansing crystal. It's actually a type of salt found primarily in mines in Mexico. This is a stone that you would not want to get wet because it has a salt component to it. It will get cloudy, it will start to melt, but it's self-cleansing, so you don't need to worry about doing anything to it to clean. So what I would recommend for you if you're just starting out with your crystals, this is a really safe way to do it. You would just lay down your bar on a table, or like I put mine sometimes on my bureau, or I have a special cabinet where I keep crystals. And then just take your crystal and set it on top of it, and I usually leave it for about 24 hours before I'm going to make a grid. You can put any crystal that you're not sure if it's one that is a self-cleansing stone, like kyanite, for example. Blue kyanite doesn't need to be cleaned, but let's say you didn't know that, then it's not going to hurt that to go ahead and just put it on your selenite. And then I leave it for 24 hours. Okay. Other ways that you can clean crystals, you can put them out in the moonlight. I typically do it during a full moon, because you want that bright, beautiful moonlight to get on the stone. That's another fairly safe way to clean stones. I can't think of any stone that you wouldn't be able to clean it in moonlight. The thing you have to be careful of if you're going to clean it in moonlight is I would recommend putting it on a windowsill that faces the light of the moon versus putting it outside, because depending on where you live, you could run into weather issues or condensation, and you don't want your stones to get wet. Another way to clean stones is to put it in a rice bath, which is just putting the stone in a bowl of rice and just leaving it there. Again, I recommend 24 hours. That's another way that you could cleanse a stone that isn't going to damage the stone. I've had questions about sunlight. Sunlight is fantastic. However, there are some stones such as citrine, and let's see, my little guideline is if it's a stone that I use for dreaming, then I generally don't put it out in the sun. That's just my own little guideline. But something like citrine, you wouldn't want to put out in the sun because this one can actually fade. Chris, are there any others that I'm not?
The rose quartz as well.
Rose quartz. Rose quartz doesn't really like being out in the sun either. This one will fade. I have a rose quartz angel in my truck, and I can tell you that she's definitely not as pink as she was when I first put her in my truck, but for me that's okay because I want my angel with me. But that's just a quick guideline. So when in doubt, just put it on a selenite bar for 24 hours and that will work. Another method is water. I actually do wash rose quartz in water. That one is one that you can do in water. And what I do is I alternate warm water and then cool water. And I do it for about 10 seconds each. And I do that round 3 times because, as you know, 3 is a good number for just about everything. So that is how I clean my stones. So that hopefully answers any questions about cleaning. If you have more questions about that, you can put a comment. Chris can see the comments coming through, so he'll let me know if there are any more questions about that. Okay, so then let's get into actually making your grid. So my favorite time of the month to make a grid is new moon, because the new moon is a time of new beginnings, new energy. It's kind of out with the old, in with the new. So when I make a crystal grid, I like to do it during the new moon. And here's how I do it. I usually think about the things that I want to manifest for the month. Now I can show you, I write down all of the things that I want to manifest for a month, because I feel that I'm experienced enough with crystals that I know how to do large combinations to be able to accomplish many things. But like, this is my manifestation list. This one happened to be from December. I had a lot of things that I wanted to manifest before the end of the year. And then what I do is I go through my list and I start looking up in either the Crystal Bible or the Book of Stones. These are my 2 go-to books for gemstones, okay? Now, if you're a beginner to gemstones, I highly recommend picking up the Crystal Bible. You can get it in any bookstore. Most crystal stores, gem shops will have this book. Amazon, you can get it in a couple of days. But the thing I love about this little guy right here is that in the index in the back, you can look up conditions that you're trying to heal. You can look up stones to accomplish particular things like attracting love, manifesting wealth or abundance, healing specific chakras. It covers so much in this book. So what I do is I take my list of things that I'm trying to manifest, and I start from the top. Like, my first one in December was to boost my son's health. In particular, I wanted to help him with detoxing metals. So what I did was I looked up in the book, I looked up detoxing, I looked up metals, and I was able to find stones that help with that. So I'm going to show you the basics of how I would make a grid. So let me put that here. Okay. There's a few different layouts for a grid that you can use, and I'll tell you, the sky is the limit. You can really do whatever layout that you want. But the basics of it is that you put a stone in the middle to amplify the energy. Here comes my cat, sorry. You put a stone in the middle to amplify the energy, and then I put supportive stones around the edge to set the intention in what I want my grid to accomplish. So here's one layout. This is called Sacred Geometry or Metatron's Cube. And as you can see, Chris actually made this from a schematic that he found on the internet, because at the time we didn't have anything with layouts for grids on it, so we just made our own. This is another one. I call it my heart grid. This was a gift from a dear friend. As some of you know, I had a heart surgery this year, so she bought this for me to help me to manifest healing for my heart, and this is actually my go-to grid now. This is another layout called Ascension. There's also like the flower of life, the tree of life. There's many, many different grid layouts. And honestly, I don't get too hung up on any of that because for me, it's all about the intention that I'm putting when I choose what I'm trying to manifest for my grid. So I'm going to show you a couple of little layouts just to give you an idea of my thought process behind making a grid, okay? So I'm going to use my trusty heart grid here. The thing that I like about this too is that it's wooden grid, okay? So what you want to consider before you start making your grid is, does the grid need to be portable? I know for us in our house, we have cats. Cats are curious. They'll get up there and knock the stones off. So I have to have a grid that I can move into. I have a cabinet and I also have a high shelf so that my cats can't get to it. But consider that when you're choosing what grid. Like, I love this because it's laminated. However, it's not portable unless I put it on top of something like a piece of wood that I can move after. So this is really my favorite. So what I do, I'm an energy healer, so I tend to give a couple of minutes of energy healing to my grid just to clear it before I put any stones on it. I've already cleaned all of my stones. They're all ready to work with on my grid. So tonight, this isn't going to be my final grid for the new moon, but I showed you a list that I made in December. So that's the idea. I take a little piece of paper, I write it down, and then I look up the stones that I want to use, and I write the stones on the back of my manifesting list, so that way I know what stones I'm going to use for my grid. So I put some research into it. A grid is not something I make in 10 minutes. It usually takes me about an hour to make a grid, okay? So I take a little piece of paper, I do all of that work. So I'm going to make a grid. Most people, I think, would like to have a little bit more prosperity, a little bit more comfort with their pocketbook, right? So I'm going to show you a quick basic grid for that. Citrine is a master stone for manifesting, okay? So this is a citrine point that I have. I put that right in the middle of my grid. I like to make the tallest stone be in the middle of my grid so that it can really amplify that energy, okay? So I just take the citrine, I put it in the middle, and then these are a bunch of little citrine, I call them grid stones. A lot of times you'll see bins of small stones at crystal shops, and not only are those great to put in your pocket, but they're also awesome for making grids because then you can really do more intricate grid work, okay? So I might consider, because I really want to manifest some, say I'm manifesting some financial gain here, and citrine is a great stone for that. So you might consider like really making your grid heavy with the citrine, right? And you can see I'm not being super particular about it, okay? So there's a start. And then aventurine is another stone. Green stones generally are great for manifesting money, okay? So I might consider like maybe adding a little bit of aventurine in there. And I really enjoy just making the grid look pretty. If you look through our Instagram feed, I've been trying to remember to take a picture of my grid each month so that you all can get a feel for what they look like. So feel free to go and check out our Instagram feed to see pictures of some of the past grids that we did. Let's see, like just something as simple as that can help you to do some manifesting, right? Oops. There we go. Okay. So it's really as simple as that. once you do all that work ahead of time, it's really as simple as that to make your grid, okay? And then I got these from a little manifesting circle, or a meditation circle that I went to. So what you can do is, like, let's say this was my list and I want to manifest a little bit of cash. You can hide that underneath your grid, okay? So when I'm done making a grid, what I do, again, because I work with energy, I give my grid some Reiki, right? You can also pray. You can pray over your grid. You can meditate with your grid. Just put your hands over it, or, just pray and, like, direct good energy toward it. And just like those of you who are Reiki students, we only do our work for the best and highest good. So, I don't recommend doing, like, lottery tickets or things like that. We really want to keep the energy pure. To me, a grid is very sacred. I use it as a way to just give myself something to focus on during the month. One of the questions that came up, aside from cleaning your crystals, is how long do you leave your grid out, which is a fantastic question, and I'll share a funny story with you. I always start my grid on new moon, and every day I spend some time meditating with it, doing some Reiki on it to, like, just keep that energy flowing, to make it so that the energy doesn't get stagnant. You want to acknowledge your grid every day. So as the month goes on, you might feel that your grid doesn't have as much energy to it. And that's generally when I know that the work of the grid is pretty much done. And usually by the time you get toward full moon, the energy of the grid, for me anyway, starts to wear off. So a funny story, I had said to Chris one night, gosh, I feel like this grid, it's close to being done. And I went to pick it up and gently move it to my little table that I use to put the grid on when I Reiki it. And my elbow had a twitch and the whole grid fell over. So I just took that as a sign from my guides that the grid was done and I didn't have to spend any more time putting energy into it. So that is a quick little grid for you. I'll show you another grid. A lot of the people that Chris and I tend to work with, they have medical issues, right? And they're looking for a way to heal. So an example that you could do for a grid for healing, quartz is an excellent all-purpose stone. So if you're new to grids and you're not quite sure what stones to use, but you want to do something, generally you can get, I think I paid like $20 for this whole bag of quartz, and they're all quartz points. So it's a great way to start if you want to be able to have some stones to play with. And let's see, for me, I'll use me as an example. I had a heart surgery in June, and so let's say you want to help somebody heal their heart. So I'm going to use some rose quartz for that. So I happen to have a rose quartz pyramid. So that's what I'm going to use for the center of this particular grid. Okay, and you can see there's no chips in it or anything. I like to use stones that are in really good condition for my grid. And I'm just going to go ahead and set it down right in the middle there. Okay, and you don't have to worry if it's taking up some space. That's totally cool, right? And then I just take some rose quartz and place it around. Again, you can see, like, just spending the time putting, the work into researching which stones to use and, what intention you want to put into your grid. It all builds up to the energy of the grid working really well for you. So if it feels stressful, then you're not doing it right. It's supposed to be fun and relaxing. So the rose quartz is a great healing stone for the heart, and it amplifies the heart energy, the heart chakra. And quartz is just an energy amplifier anyway. So I want lots of energy to go in and through the grid, right? So I'm just picking stones that they look like they'll kind of fit in there, like kind of the skinnier ones. Have points, put it toward the middle. Let's see. Oh, there's a good one. And you can see, I mean, this is really how easy it is. It shouldn't feel stressful. Okay. So that would be a great one. And if you wanted to, like kyanite is a master healer stone. It's a master balancing stone. I mean, you can mix it up. You don't have to keep it to 2 stones. If you look at our Instagram feed, you'll see some of the grids that I make have lots of stones in them. But go nuts, have fun, you know? This is supposed to be a fun process.
Dina has a question.
Dina has a question.
What are your thoughts on grids for under your bed for good dreams and protection?
Fantastic question. Thank you. So grids don't only have to be isolated to something small like this, okay? Grids can also, you can grid your bed. You can grid your whole house. You can grid a particular room. Like there are, again, in this little guy, the Crystal Bible, they actually tell you, let me see if I can find it really quick so I can kind of show you. Here's a picture. This person, they put a grid around themselves, their self. Okay, so you can put a grid around you. You can absolutely make a grid under your bed for good dreams. So what I would do in that case is I would look up stones for dreams. If you don't have this book, that's cool. Go on the internet and just search around and, just type into Google what stones are good for dreams, and you'll get some really good information on there. There are some great websites for stones. Let me see. I'm looking for the information for to show you a little bit about gridding a room because I know it's in here. But anyway, yeah, so you can absolutely grid your house, your room, yourself, grid under your bed. You can even do like a small grid at your job. Like, people usually comment that those things look neat. So, as long as you're not making this huge spread, but, it doesn't even have to be this big, just a couple of stones. My formula for making a grid is a big stone in the middle and stones around it to amplify the energy and to really pump it up. So just to give you one more little example of a grid that I wanted to mention, when you put your stone in the middle, like this looks like, oh, this is a great stone, right? Because it's tall, it's got a point on it. However, when I put this smoky quartz on the center of my grid, do you see how it's tilted? For me, I would not use this for the center of my grid. I would only use a stone that is straight because I want that energy to amplify up and into the energy of the room. For me, this would feel like it would be crooked and that it would move the energy lopsided, so that doesn't settle well with me. But like, let's say you're new to crystals again. This is a great investment. I think we paid $18 for this guy. But this is about 4 inches high, and it is just like your straight, regular quartz, okay? Quartz is a master stone for many, many things. But, you don't have to have a fancy pyramid or a citrine. A quartz is a fantastic all-purpose stone to have to put in the center of your grid. So I just wanted to make the point about how I like to use something that isn't crooked because I like to move my energy straight up. So that is it for me. Are there any other questions coming in? Chris, do you see any other questions?
No, people are popping on and off, but Dina's with us right now.
All right, Dina. So if you have any other questions about grids, please feel free to reach out. You can put a comment on the video, or you can reach out to me personally. I thank all of you that were asking questions about this, because when I start to feel the energy of a lot of questions, then I know that it's a good time to do a Facebook Live so that people can get the information. Because if one person has these questions, then chances are other people have the questions too. So thank you so much for keeping us on our toes with different things to talk about, because we love to serve all of you and to help you with understanding and enjoying different topics that we know about. We love to share information. So have a great night and enjoy your crystal grids. The next new moon, I believe it's Monday, February 4th. So get your stones ready. And if you want, post a picture of your grid either on your Instagram and tag us. We're Dahl Holistic Health on Instagram, or here on Facebook. Go ahead and tag us in the picture, or post it right here on our wall. We'd love to see what you come up with for grids. So have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.